Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. Surprise, surprise, I got one more video for you on something I played early. Well, not something, but a lot of things I played early. To not draw things out, I just want to make sure I throw all the other games at you that I got hands-on time with when I was out in LA for this Xbox event. So I played games like Towerborn, Our History Untold. I also played Fall, Winter's Burrow, and also while I was out there, I made a whole separate video on this. I played Avowed. But we're going to talk really about the other 4 games that I went hands-on with that I wasn't going to make dedicated videos on, but just talk to you about a ton of extra things I played early just to round out the coverage for while I was out there. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and you're into previews and reviews, boy, do we have a lot going on with that. That's been like every video for the last 5 uploads and definitely more to come. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Before any preview goodness, a quick word from today's sponsor. The timing for this couldn't be more hilarious. I just added Guild Wars 2 to my library on Steam during the sale. I was like, oh, I could get down with an MMORPG. And then they reach out about Janthir Wilds. So let's talk about it, shall we? It's a free-to-start MMORPG that really respects your time. I love that they do account-wide unlocks for many of its features. Now, Janthir Wilds, what I mentioned earlier, is the newest expansion. It's also the 5th one, and it's releasing on August 20th. What I think is really great is that this game is committed to quarterly content releases across the span of this year. So there is just plenty of stuff coming out. So when you get invested, there's going to be more to arrive. And there's a new weapon for all different professions. So for the first time in Guild Wars 2 history, a new weapon type is actually going to be introduced for land combat called the two-handed spear. Now, initially, this was designed for underwater combat, but Janthir Wilds will actually allow players to freely swap between aquatic and terrestrial weapon slots, each with unique weapon skills. And Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds is going to bring the long-requested player-friendly feature housing system in homesteads to the game. So there's no lottery, no land grab, rent, or maintenance. It's your own homestead, an account-wide personal instance with a structure and land for you to decorate and cultivate, and it's awesome, and it's cozy, and I love it. Now, there are also mounts, which are one of the strongest and most acclaimed features in Guild Wars 2, and this expansion is going to bring an updated Warclaw acquisition method and its own mastering line. Plus, it's one of the most healthy, diverse, and inclusive communities in gaming, which is so important in the MMO community. As someone who's been playing MMOs since I was a kid, I just got to say that it's so important to have a good community there that's going to walk you through those opening player moments, and Guild Wars 2 certainly has that. Plus, challenging and cooperative content like 3 new open world maps, convergences, raids, new fractal dungeons, Wizard's Vault rewards. There's so much here. So what are you waiting for? Check out Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds. Link in the description down below. Thank you to Guild Wars 2 for sponsoring today's video. With this, let's begin at the top here with what I thought was game of the event. So I went out there and I mentioned all the other games I played. One of them was Avowed. And generally speaking, I imagine if you know me, you'd think like Avowed is going to be my game of the event. And no doubt it's a Matty game, but if I'm talking about surprise factor and enjoyment factor and excitement factor and quality factor, I think Towerborn showed out. And Towerborn was my favorite game of this event, especially when you consider this is releasing in early access in September. I think that this is one of those moments where you kind of look at Hades when it dropped in, quote, early access, and you're like, yo, this is more content rich and polished than most games releasing in full, apparently. For those who don't know, the developer of Towerborn is Stoic Studio. They are the team that brought us the Banner Saga, which is a phenomenal RPG series. I had the time to speak with some of the developers on the game as well as their marketing director, and it turns out they have a lot of fighting game fans on the roster, but also beat 'em up fans. So they looked at games like Dragon's Crown, which is a personal niche favorite of mine. I was so happy to see them reference that. They talked about my beloved Ninja Turtles in Turtles in Time, but they also said they wanted to bring a fighting game style to the beat 'em up genre, and that's really what this is. So there's a multitude of classes I could go hands-on with while I was at the event. I played around with the Brawler, which was just 2 big fists beat up your enemy, as well as a swordsman who had a sword and a shield and a more defensive options, and each of them played completely differently. The other thing that was really awesome to see is just how many combos you could stretch together. Like, truly, it was exciting to see how long I could stretch some of these combos and even have the co-op partners drop in and add to said combo. So this could go up to 4-player co-op, and when I say you can juggle in this game, like, you're gonna put some clowns to shame on how well you can juggle in this game. You can keep enemies afloat for a ridiculously long amount of time. And not only that, but every character archetype has their own set of abilities. And what's even crazier is that I didn't get to see the whole other sliver of the game, just the combat and the exploration we'll talk about in a moment, but I didn't get to see the whole hub area. I didn't get to see the scope of the game or anything. It was just one level, one stretch that I replayed a handful of times and was really impressed by. And so not only do these character classes play differently, but you have loot that you're going to get at the end of these missions. They're also going to evolve and grow with your character over time. You can change how your character looks at any point in the game, and apparently there's a lore reason for that. And I already reported this. I know it's already been covered, but I did ask about Steam Early Access ahead of Xbox Game Preview and what goes on there. And they told me pretty directly that what's happening with Towerborn is just they want to get the game to a level where when they get that massive surge of players with Xbox Game Pass, that the game's at the best possible state. So if you're looking to be like a lab rat for Towerborn effectively, Steam Early Access is where you're going to go for that. That's out September 10th, and I'm really excited for this one. I really thought it was impressive for what was there. When it comes to like running around the level, one of my favorite things was that the camera is not tied to all the characters at once. Eventually you'll get rubber banded forward, but if I want to fight someone at the bottom of the screen and someone wants to fight at the top of the screen and go off screen, it doesn't drag me to them or them to me. You just go and fight, and that is great. I think the art is beautiful, very much packed in with that same style, love, and care that you would find in the Banner Saga. And the music slaps. They said they went to the Warner Bros. Studio to get that done, so yeah. Heavily orchestrated, and it sounds wonderful. I really enjoyed Towerborn, game of the event for me. Then I got some hands-on time with one that I think y'all will find interesting, and that was Atomfall. Atomfall is coming from Rebellion, and this is, you would not be mistaken to say, a Fallout Stalker-inspired game. And if I'm looking at games with the most potential that also need the most work, this fits the bill perfectly. Atomfall can be great, but that AI needs love. I mean, it needs hugs and love, man. It really needs it bad. I mean, there are times that the enemies were just standing there looking at me or chasing me down and hesitating. Like, the lack of polish there was super apparent, where I was almost a little surprised they were showing the game off. Also, the difficulty is not balanced well at all. So you'll have enemies run up, kill you. Okay, fine, skill issue, whatever. But then you'll respawn, and you'll only spawn right next to where they were about to detect you. So even the checkpoint system in the game is really finicky and needs some work. Now, by design, this game is also clunky, janky, as some would put it. And that's one of the things I really like about Atomfall. It's not like Far Cry where I can crawl into a base and choke out 20 security guards in a row and just be God himself, right? Like, this is a game where your resources matter. Like, I had a couple bullets and I immediately got into that rhythm of these count. It has that survival horror vibe to it where it's just like every shot counts. And when I missed a shot, I'd wince a little bit because I knew how precious that was. It immediately hit me. I also love the models for the guns. I picked up some rusty, old, clunky looking weapons, and they felt and sounded the part, and certainly they looked it. I also like that when I pressed the reload button, I'd sometimes like uncock my weapon, check on the ammunition on the inside. I just love the attention to detail in the weaponry, like bullet casings being left over in the gun itself after it being fired off. It was just really cool to see. The world is very post-apocalyptic, and you are trying to find out where you came from. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Fallout London in a manner of speaking, which would make sense with the very much UK inspired phone booths, which when you listen to them, you're going to hear someone telling you to go seek like Oberon or something like that. I'm like, what's going on here? So what you have here is a post-apocalyptic feeling world with a very mysterious narrative, a lot of danger packed into that world, pretty decent exploration. I was just super happy to say that walking away from it, even though my demo was very short, that this didn't delve immediately into grab every blade of grass, grab every material under the sun, get to crafting, gamer. Like, I'm happy if this game just stays away from crafting and focuses more on loot. So yeah, Atomfall was a game that needed a lot of work, but I see a ton of potential in it, especially as a Fallout fan. This next one is a dangerous game, Aura History Untold. This was the one I went the second longest with hands-on time for. The most time I spent was with Avowed, but Aura History Untold was in second place because the demos averaged about an hour, and just as expected, this game just deletes time itself. It's insane. So just like any Civilization-inspired game, you're going to fire this thing up, and if you get into it, oh, you're going to get into it. Now, I will just say this, and I got kind of slandered out here on the show floor, if you will, because all of a sudden, every nation decided to rally against me, France, and I have no idea why, but I had 3 nations invade me. I had the Aztec Empire declare war on me, Japan declared war on me, China declared war on me. I don't know what I did, by the way. All I did was expand my land, didn't mess with anybody. I was trying to open borders, trade with everyone, no scouts arriving on enemy borders, but everyone got mad at me at once, and I was told by people on the floor that they had no idea that you could even die during this demo. So I had a pretty bad hand dealt to me is what I'm saying. And I say all that to say, I still am really into this game, man. Art History Untold is feeling kind of dangerous. I love the art style. I love the heroes you get to play as, like Jeanne d'Arc leading France. I think that's just kind of cool. It just works for me. On a gameplay level, if you've played Civilization, then this is going to work really well for you. It follows a lot of the similar beats, like, oh, here are your settlers, here are your scouts. The scouts are going to go explore the land. I found there to be a little more dedicated resource gathering in Art History Untold, like going to particular blocks of the world and literally gathering by hand specific materials that would help you build those early cities. I will also say the UI in this game was a little overwhelming because of the way the demo was handed off to you. There was no tutorial, and so you were kind of left to fend for yourself. So I can't sit here and act like I had a very intimate understanding of Art History Untold. What I will say is there is a pretty good balance between combat and world building. There is still what you would imagine in Civilization, you know, just building up the best possible empire you can, but there is combat, and when enemies face off, you can actually watch the battles themselves. And I'd say my favorite thing about Art History Untold is how progression through a game works and how multiplayer feels kind of appealing, in that you have a ranking leaderboard of 10 nations in my game. And so the bottom 3 nations, if they don't reach a certain level of prestige over the course of a game, then by 100+ turns, you'll be, quote, lost to time. That, or in my case, I got invaded by 3 countries and got erased from the game. But if you actually get past the 100-turn mark and don't get invaded by 3 countries, then what will happen is you'll be lost to time, you'll be forgotten, and then the rest of the game continues on. And so it gives the game a pretty good flow and a sense of urgency, which I never really experienced. Like, you obviously want to make the most of every turn in these Civilization style games, but I really like how this one, I felt like the urgency of, I have to really stay in this, otherwise I'm going to be lost to time itself. So even just leapfrogging to 6th place was good enough. So you don't have to immediately be top of the leaderboard. Obviously that's ideal, but I just liked how the game was paced out. So yeah, that was Art History Untold. Really looking forward to the release of that in about a month's time. And yeah, goodbye free time. That is a dangerous video game. And so that leaves us with one more game, and that was Winter's Burrow. So yeah, you may remember this one. You play as a mouse in the middle of the woods, and there's snow everywhere, and this is your childhood home. What I learned right away with Winter's Burrow is this game opens up in a very heartfelt manner. So much so that this was my quickest demo on the show floor, simply because upon playing it, I went, oh, this has emotion to it. I mean, the soundtrack is already phenomenal. The composer was actually on the scene. He's from Denmark. My fiance spoke to him pretty extensively about like his work in gaming and how like he seemed pretty new to the whole thing. Like he never heard of Persona, for example. So it was pretty cool to learn that and just how amazed he was by Atlas's work. But it's a very small team, and they're really hoping this pops off because they have what they call a new genre here in cozy survival game. And so yeah, I'm not a big survival game fan. Many of you have probably heard me complain a little bit about survival games as of late. Like, why are all the co-op games survival? But this one just has heart, y'all. I mean, the art style speaks for itself, but you can sit down by your little fireplace and knit a sweater, and that lets you survive in the cold a little bit longer. It's defined this way, and I think it is accurate to say it's this. Approachable. It's definitely an approachable survival game. So if you're new to this genre, this is a good place to start. Or you have a new gamer coming into the building, this is a good game to hand off to them and be like, hey, here's a more approachable, less combat centric, less, oh my god, I'm getting chased by like some freak in the woods style survival game. This is just coziness. Gather some materials and watch a story unfold over time, because the game's about like coming home after this big adventure and everyone you knew and loved is gone, and you're rebuilding your old home and trying to, like, for me, the part that got me was after you arrive home and no one's there, it's like find your aunt. I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna crush my heart. I can just feel it because like no one is here right now. So I just loved the art style, the music, the coziness of the game. I can see this really taking over for those who are big cozy game fans or survival fans. Like, survival is usually identified by intensity, but I feel like this was the opposite. It just wants to soothe you into its world and just have you get all comfortable with it, like snuggle up with it. You know, instead of calling it peak, as I mentioned when it was first revealed at the Xbox showcase, it is indeed squeak. So how about that, ladies and gentlemen? A lot of these games really delivered for me. There were a couple other games available that I didn't get hands-on time with. For example, there was Little Nightmares 3. I haven't played the other two, so I didn't think my coverage of that would be really worthwhile. And then there was also Funko Pop, the video game, like the Funko Fusion game. And just with all due respect, I don't think the game looks very good, so I didn't really want to check it out. But they were giving away free Funko Pops that were pretty expensive. So yeah, my head was in the right place. I had my eyes on the literal prize, which was getting you all valuable coverage and not, you know, netting myself like $100 Funko Pop to like pay for dinner this month or something. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you when it comes to the games that I played during the Xbox Gamescom LA event. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on any of the games you found interesting here, so let me know down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.